Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Raven of DIY Raven channel, blog, website, and Instagram, all same name. Today I would like to do a sewing pattern review of the Sew Over It Heather dress. So this was my very first introduction to the Sew Over It line. I really love Lisa's style. And I picked this pattern just because I loved the ease of it. I loved how it looked really easy to color block. Be dressed up, can be dressed down with pockets. So what girl doesn't love pockets in her dress? My initial thought for this pattern was to use a Ponte Roma knit that I had sourced from Mood Fabrics. So it was kind of a hefty Ponte Roma, but beautiful. But it was very structured. With this pattern overall, I had a couple issues. I felt like the directions were pretty okay. I definitely try to read through all the pattern steps first. The pockets is probably something that you're really just gonna have to really just take step by step, because that part can be a little confusing. But when you do it, it's like, oh, okay, and it comes out nice, and you're like, oh, okay, like that worked out well. But if you ask me to do it again, I'd be like, what? Version 1 and 2 are basically the same. Version 1 is basically all solid, or all using like no accent color, no color blocking. So you're just using all of one material or yardage, and whereas version 2, you're using 2 different knits, or 2 different color knits, or whatever. I just decided to do solid. When you have like 2 different pieces on a pattern, specifically if like one is kind of curved and it has to like butt up to another one, I'm okay with easing. But sometimes like at the end, I don't know where to end the 2 pieces. So I know I'm not explaining this well, but basically I got it wrong, and so by the time that I sewed the 2 pieces together, I was basically off by like 5/8 of an inch. So that was just a bad start to the pattern. So it made it extremely tight in the body. Fine, my fault. But the arms, however, I really had a lot of problem in the area of the arms. So this pattern is from an 8 to a size 8 to a size 20. I did the PDF version, so 20 was the largest size that was available. So as far as bust, waist, hip ratio for size 8, that's 33, 26, 36. And the bust, waist, hip ratio for size 20 is 45, 38, 48, and this is in inches. So I was supposed to fall into an 8. Again, I threw my own measurements off by cutting too close, in with the main body of the garment. But with the arms, I cut them out as they were, as I was supposed to, and it was just way too narrow, specifically in this part right here. And then also too, it was just a weird fit when I did this version and when I did the other version, like right here. So I did the full length of the sleeves, but there's also like a cropped like 3/4, and the only reason why I didn't do the 3/4 is just because like it's just a length that really bothers me. It's not exactly short sleeve, it's not exactly long sleeve, so always want to either like zhuzh it up or I want to pull it down, and that's just a very aggravating length to me, so I just avoided that. I just did long sleeves. So the sleeves are nice and long. I don't mind like a kind of like a longer sleeve, that's fine. It's just that it was just way too tight. I mean, I'm not really the largest person, so for me to like, I had a really hard time just getting my arm through. So when it reached that point, when I had gotten to one, I was trying to like just push through. I was like, okay, it's a little tight, but that's fine. I'll just push through. But when it came to the arms, I was like, okay, it's just dead. It's just a done deal. I'm giving up. But it's such a cute pattern, and like I said, I knew I messed up on the main body part. I was like, you know what? Let me try this again. So I ordered more fabric from Mood. So this is like a lighter jersey knit. Felt like it was going to be a little easier to work with because it's just less structured, because it's basically like a nice t-shirt, weighted material. Second time around, once again, I had to kind of really slow down at the pockets, but it didn't throw me as hard. But you just really need to kind of pay attention because it's just really kind of confusing. But again, like once you just like take your time, it's like, okay, I got it. But if you're gonna have like any kind of like speed bump, it's definitely the pockets. Pretty much after that, it kind of just, the pattern just kind of goes. Because of some of the issues I had, especially with the arm, instead of doing an 8, I went ahead and bumped it up to a 10, which doesn't even sound like a lot, but for some reason, and I don't know, maybe because, this fabric is a little more lightweight and generous, between sizing up, the arm just fits so much better on this one. But I still had this issue, and I guess I had it probably more because I'm not exactly, I did size up. So this is the original, which there seems to be, you can't tell too much with the print, but there's just quite an excess. So when I put my arm up, it's a little much, I think. So this is the modified one, and I feel like for me, it's laying a little better. And even though I still have like a bulge I can deal with a little bit for movement, but I mean, just in comparison, obviously this one is a lot more. So as you can see, that's the original, seam allowance of where I put in the arm, and then this one, I took it in about another 5/8 of an inch, probably in disappearing into about right here. I didn't modify under the arm, just the top, and I'm not great at like tailoring per se, but I figured that it was at least to me, this is an improvement, and I can live with this. But I mean, even this, like if I do this, like I feel like it lays down better. But this one, it's just always this like point. And if this were a detail that the shoulders supposed to like kind of come out, like that's fine. But I don't think that wasn't necessarily intentional. I always like kind of go through the Instagram hashtags and just see how everybody else has done this rendition of the pattern. And what I noticed was, after I had done it once, that most people's in the arm, it looks really tight, and it can kind of be an odd looking in the shoulders. So, and I don't know if I was like a little more hypersensitive to it, because those were two issues that I felt like I found, when I did the pattern the first time. But I'll at least put that out there, just so you're aware of it. But I did shorten mine. I shortened mine probably about 5.5 inches, and then folded it under probably another like 5/8. So I did kind of make it hit more like mid to lower thigh, because it was hitting below the knee, and I just felt like I wanted more of a seasonally transitional dress. It just looked a little too fall appropriate, only because I have the long sleeves and it was a long dress. So I wanted to make it also seem like it could be like a party evening dress, or just like I could go out in the evening, at night, like in the summer or in the spring. I would personally rate this as maybe intermediate, just because of maybe some of the little fitting issues I had. I wouldn't call it intermediate because of working with knits, because I think anybody of any level can work on knits. But I also will say intermediate just because, like, maybe if you've worked with a knit or two before, it would be helpful, because even doing the neckline, it just kind of gives you a one size a one size band. So you kind of have to like figure out, and I had to kind of trim it a couple times. I've done these necklines a few times before, so I kind of understand how much smaller this needs to be than the actual neckline round. But that may be a little more trial and error for someone that hasn't worked with something like that before. So maybe that's something to think about if you are newer to sewing. But I would, for the most part, never like say to anybody, you know what I mean, if you're new to sewing, don't do this pattern. But I do want to at least put some things out there that you will have to kind of be aware of. So anyway, saying all of that to say, I am really pleased with how it turned out. I mean, I had to doctor a little bit, but I think it was worth it. And would I do it again? I really think I would do it again. Definitely again, I wouldn't do it in a, I mean, I've seen other people, you know, they've done the ponte knit version, but in the pocket area, it's, you know, quite a few layers, and if you're using like kind of a thicker ponte knit, it just, I think it's just a little too much thickness where the pockets are. So I think a lighter jersey is a little more appropriate, because it's, one, I feel like it's easier to work with, and things kind of lay a little nicer, and two, it's just not as much thickness in the pocket area. Despite, you know, some of my complaints, gripes, and, you know, some of the things I mentioned here, I would definitely do another one of her patterns, just because I think she really has a really nice style, and, you know, the things that were issues for me may not even really be issues for you at all. So anyway, that is my review of the Sew Over It Heather dress. Thank you so much, as usual, for watching, and I will see you on the next one.